Cold War fans, and welcome to the Cold War Combat Studio. I am your host, Major Dice Fumbles, and on today's episode, we're going to be tackling our first battle report. The scenario comes from one of my favorite Cold War works of fiction, a book called First Clash by Keneth Macksey. First Clash is a must have if you enjoy novels like Team Yankee and Red Army. It depicts a fictitious Cold War gone hot engagement between the 4th Canadian Mechanized Brigade Group and a Soviet tank division. Now, the book is based about circa 1984, at a time when the 4th Canadian Mechanized Brigade Group was to deploy in support of either the 7th U.S. Corps or the 2nd German Corps. The first scenario, in what we hope to be maybe a 3 or 4 part series, has a platoon from N Company, 3rd Royal Canadian Regiment, with tanks from B Squadron, Royal Canadian Dragoons, entrenched in a holding action east of a terrain feature called Blickheim Ridge. But before we go any further, let's introduce the rule set we'll be using for today's battle report. It is a Cold War rule set called 7 Days to the River Rhine by Great Escape Games. Here you can see the table representing the battlefield. In the foreground is the Autobahn from which the Soviet 290th Motor Rifle Regiment will advance from. The buildings to the left depict the hamlets of Foch and Favorite. Behind them is Blickheim Ridge, and to the right is the outskirts of the village of Blickheim. Canadian engineers have sown a linear minefield between the Autobahn and the pylons that span the width of the table. The Canadians will be fielding a reinforced platoon consisting of a troop of 4 Leopard C1s, a platoon of mechanized infantry, 3 M150 TOWs, 2 Lynx reconnaissance vehicles, 2 M113s with red-eye SAMs, and 2 M125 mortars. We'll also be using hidden markers for deployment and, of course, the tactical advantage cards. And for the Soviets, we have 2 BRDM-2 scout cars, 4 T-72 main battle tanks, 2 ZS-23 Shilkas, and a Motor Rifle Regiment company in BMP-1s. This constitutes the advanced guard of the Motor Rifle Regiment. Okay, here we go. On turn 1, the Canadians will be using these hidden deployment markers with the names of the unit written on the back. They can only be detected by a recce unit within 12 inches, a regular unit within 4 inches, if they fire or if they make a movement in the open. Okay, we start the game with turn 1 with the Soviets having initiative. They deployed a security element of the forward detachment, which would be 1 tank, 3 BMPs, and 2 BRDM-2s. But breaching the minefield turned out to be a nightmare, which they ran into and died spectacularly. First off, this T-72 tried to take positions to cover any advances, but was knocked out by fire. This BRDM-2 was also knocked out by fire. They were ambushed by a Leopard hiding in this field and another Leopard that was hiding up near Favorite. Between the two of them, they just poured fire into those 2 units and killed them. And it went worse after that. We had a platoon of BMPs that got caught up in the minefield, destroying all 3 BMPs and killing all occupants. The only thing that managed to get through, the only saving grace here, was this BRDM-2, which advanced into Foch and managed to clear a couple hidden deployment markers that there was nothing behind. Okay, we come to the end of turn 2. Not much movement happened on the field for the Soviets, but one of the things I tried to do was use this card for a Spetsnaz to jump out of the building and Favorite and RPG that Leopard in the behind. But of course, the other player here had a communications card which disrupted it and allowed him to get out of range before I could fire. So he darted forward 12 inches to get out of RPG range, and that kiboshed that. Well, so I had one more trick up my sleeve. I had this following card, which is precision guided munition that I tried to bring down on one of the Leopards. And again, I was counteracted here by the intelligence coup, which negated that. Okay, we're at the end of turn 3, and Soviet reinforcements have arrived. On the right flank, we had 3 T-72s arrive, one with a mine plow, and it managed to cut a path through the minefield. Took a lot of fire in doing that. A couple of ZS-23s came up for support, and we had 2 platoons of BMP-1s push through the minefield on the left flank, and they lost about 30% of their forces in doing so. But here they are disembarking infantry into the village of Falk, and they took a whole ton of fire there. Mortar fire as well from some M25s that moved up. We managed to kill 2 leopards, and one of them popped up and started shooting up the T-72s on the right flank. Some Canadian infantry arrived, along with some M150 TOWs, which poured fire onto the BMPs. Not a good turn for the Soviets. They're really hurting, and they're almost at a breaking point here, but we'll see what happens in the next turn. Okay, here we are at the end of turn 4. At this point, the Soviets have pretty much lost their momentum. They did manage to consolidate their gains in the village of Falk and started to make a push onto Favorite. As you can see here, another Leopard C1 was knocked out. I think this time it was by BMP fire. And there's one of the Leopards there really put a pounding, knocked out the mine plow tank, and put all kinds of morale markers on the remaining 2 T-72s that were there. That essentially, that right flank has completely stalled. And they managed to again bring up more infantry or some recce vehicles. The center is really strongly held by TOWs. And they brought their mortars up, which they started to pound the occupants of the village of Falk. So at this point, it's really not looking good for the Russians. Now at this point, our GoPro died, and I was not able to record what happened in the final turn. But honestly, you're not missing anything. Like I said previously, the Russians at this point had lost momentum. So where does that leave us? Well, realistically, the forward detachment did what it was supposed to do. They were meant to move forward. They were meant to pin down a NATO defending unit. In this example, it was a company, part of a company that they were pinning down. And that allows the main body of the Motor Rifle Regiment to engage and punch a hole through the front line for the following tank battalions to push through. So that concludes our first battle report. I know it was a short one, but it is going to be the first scenario out of hopefully 3 or 4 that we're going to do based upon the story told in Keneth Macksey's First Class novel. So the next scenario, which we're planning to film this week, will be the follow-up. It'll be 2 companies of the 290th Motor Rifle Regiment now attacking a pinned down Canadian reinforced company, and hopefully we'll see what happens there, whether or not it'll open up a hole in the front line or not. And then the follow-up scenarios will just continue to build on the story told in First Clash. All right, if you like what you saw today, please click like and subscribe and even share. We would love that, and it allows us to make more content based upon wargaming the Cold War. And until next time, this has been your host, Major Dice Fumbles, signing off.